Have you ever felt trapped by pain, like a shadow that follows every step, every moment, stealing your energy and dimming your hope? Have you ever woken up dreading the stiffness, the ache that makes even the simplest tasks feel impossible? For over 20 years, I lived with relentless back pain, trying everything: pills, creams, therapies, only to face frustration and resignation. But then, something simple, something natural, changed everything in just 3 nights. This isn't just my story. It could be the spark of hope you've been searching for. Watch until the end to discover how a small bottle of oil gave me back my freedom and why it might just do the same for you. Before we begin, I would appreciate it if you like this video. You can help me continue to spread the old age lesson. If you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. If you like this video, please comment number 1. If you don't like it, comment number 0 to let me know, so I can make a better video for you. Now let's get started. The sensation wasn't abrasive, nor did it sear or prickle my skin like so many other remedies I'd tried over the years. Instead, it was inviting, almost comforting, like a gentle embrace from an old friend. As I massaged the oil into my lower back, my fingers gliding over the familiar knots and tense muscles, I began to notice a subtle warmth blossoming beneath my skin. It wasn't the aggressive, fiery heat of those sports creams that left my skin raw and my nerves jangled. No, this was something entirely different. Soft, deep, and radiating from within, as if my muscles were being coaxed into surrender without any effort on my part. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, my back didn't feel like it was locked in a constant state of resistance. It was letting go, releasing years of tension that had become as much a part of me as my breath. After the massage, I approached my bedtime ritual with the usual caution, lowering myself onto the mattress with the slow, deliberate movements I'd perfected over years of managing chronic pain. I braced for the familiar stab that always greeted me the moment my body made contact with the bed, a sharp reminder that rest was never truly restful. But this time, to my quiet astonishment, the pain didn't come. I settled onto my side, carefully tucking a pillow between my knees as I always did to ease the pressure on my spine. Then I waited, half expecting the discomfort to creep in, delayed but inevitable. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. The room was still, save for the soft hum of the world outside my window. I closed my eyes, and before I could register the absence of pain, I drifted into sleep. It wasn't just any sleep. It was deep, unbroken, and enveloping, the kind I hadn't experienced in years, decades, even. I didn't wake at midnight, as I so often did, startled by a jolt of pain that forced me to shift positions. I didn't spend hours tossing and turning, searching for a posture that might grant me a fleeting moment of relief. I didn't lie awake, counting the hours until dawn, my mind heavy with the exhaustion of battling my own body. I simply slept, cradled in peace so profound it felt like a gift I'd forgotten I could receive. When I opened my eyes the next morning, sunlight was already filtering through the curtains, casting a warm glow across the room. My first instinct was to remain perfectly still, as if moving might summon the pain that had defined my mornings for so long. I braced for the stiffness that always gripped my spine, the ache that made the first movement of the day feel like a negotiation with my own body. But it didn't come. Tentatively, I sat up, expecting the usual twinge to protest the motion. Nothing. I swung my legs over the edge of the bed and stood, my feet meeting the cool hardwood floor with an ease I hadn't felt in years. I paused there, sitting in silence, marveling at the absence of the sharp, relentless pain that had been my constant companion. The discomfort was still present, yes, but it was muted, distant, like a faint echo rather than the blaring siren it had always been. It was as if someone had reached inside me and turned down the volume on a torment that had been ringing in my bones for decades. In that quiet moment, a question stirred within me, one I hadn't dared to entertain before. Could this be a coincidence? Or was it possible that something was changing? The second day began with a sensation I hadn't realized I'd forgotten: lightness. I woke without the crushing weight in my lower back, the sensation that forced me to move as if I were carrying an invisible burden. There was no need to twist my body with painstaking care, no need to brace my arms against the bed frame to hoist myself upright. I simply sat up, effortlessly, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I lingered on the edge of the bed for a few moments, not out of necessity but out of wonder, testing the reality of this newfound freedom. The pain hadn't vanished entirely, but it felt far removed, no longer the central force dictating every movement, every breath. It was a tolerable hum, relegated to the periphery of my existence rather than its core. For the first time in years, I could describe my condition without the haze of painkillers clouding my senses. I rose and made my way to the kitchen, my steps steady and unhesitant. It wasn't until I reached the counter, reaching for the kettle, that I realized something extraordinary. I hadn't clung to the walls for support. I hadn't leaned on the furniture to steady myself. My movements were fluid, unencumbered, as if my body was returning to me a piece of itself I'd long believed lost. It was a quiet revelation, one that unfolded not in a single moment of triumph, but in the subtle accumulation of small, ordinary actions performed without fear. Throughout the day, I became an observer of my own body, noting every motion with a mix of curiosity and cautious hope. I bent to retrieve a pen that had rolled off the table, and there was no need to pause, no need to mentally prepare for the inevitable pang. I stretched out on the couch to read, and the sharp tug that usually caught me off guard was absent. Even when I took a deep breath, my chest and back expanded freely, unhindered by the stiffness that had constrained me for so long. Each moment felt like a small victory, a reclamation of a life I'd thought was forever out of reach. But doubt lingered at the edges of my mind. Was I exaggerating? Was this merely the fleeting excitement of someone desperate to believe in a solution after so many failures? I knew better than to trust too quickly. Years of disappointment had taught me that hope could be a fragile thing. Yet the evidence was undeniable. This wasn't wishful thinking. It was tangible, physical, real. My body was responding in ways it hadn't in years. That afternoon, I reached for the oil again, repeating the ritual from the night before. I dispensed a few drops into my palms, the liquid catching the light as it pooled in my hands. I rubbed them together, warming the oil, and inhaled its soothing aroma, a blend of earthy herbs and faint citrus that seemed to calm not just my body but my mind. This time, I massaged it into my skin with a sense of purpose, a quiet gratitude replacing the desperation that had driven me the first night. I wasn't just applying a remedy. I was beginning to trust in its possibility. As I worked the oil into my back, I felt the warmth return, that same gentle heat that seemed to seep into my muscles and coax them into relaxation. That night, I went to bed with less apprehension, even a flicker of anticipation. I settled into the sheets, closed my eyes, and let a single question drift through my mind as I surrendered to sleep. Is this working? If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. By the third night, the act of reaching for the oil had taken on the weight of a ritual, imbued with a quiet reverence. I no longer viewed the small amber bottle with skepticism but with something akin to faith, not blind belief, but a trust earned through experience. I poured a few drops into my hands, the familiar scent rising to meet me, and began to massage my back with deliberate, almost meditative care. Each circular motion felt like an act of gratitude, a way of honoring the relief this simple remedy had brought me. It wasn't just about easing pain anymore. It was about reclaiming a part of myself I'd thought was gone forever. That night, I slept as I hadn't since I was young. Deeply, dreamlessly, without the constant interruptions of pain that had plagued me for years. I didn't wake every 2 hours to adjust my position and didn't shift restlessly as the bed seemed to punish every turn. When I opened my eyes the next morning, the room was bathed in soft daylight, the world outside stirring gently. The silence in the house felt different, lighter, more serene, as if it mirrored the calm that had settled within me. I sat up in one fluid motion, without hesitation, without pain. I stood, expecting the familiar protest from my back, but there was nothing. I walked to the kitchen, my steps brisk and unencumbered, not slow or hunched as they'd been for so long. As I filled the kettle, I realized the magnitude of what had happened. The pain was gone. Not dull, not managed, but absent, as if it had been lifted from my body like a heavy cloak. Later that morning, I stepped into the garden, the air cool against my skin. I went to water the plants, my movements instinctive and uncalculated. I reached down to pluck a few dry leaves from the soil, and my body complied without complaint. At that moment, crouched among the greenery, my hands brushing the earth, I felt a wave of emotion rise within me. Tears welled in my eyes, spilling over before I could stop them. I cried, not out of sorrow, but out of overwhelming relief and gratitude. I cried like a child, raw and unguarded, because I had reclaimed something I believed was lost forever. It wasn't just my back that had been freed. It was my life. My ability to move without fear, to breathe without restriction, to exist without the constant shadow of pain. I thought of all the times I'd been told to accept my condition, to manage it as best I could. I remembered the vague diagnoses, the endless prescriptions that dulled my mind but never touched the pain, the mornings I woke feeling like I was losing a battle I hadn't chosen to fight. And in that garden, with the earth beneath my fingers, I felt a mix of relief and quiet anger. Why hadn't anyone told me about this sooner? I'm not claiming this oil is a miracle cure, nor am I suggesting it will work the same for everyone. But for me, that small bottle was a turning point, a catalyst for change that reached far beyond the physical. It didn't just soothe my pain, it restored my faith in my body, in the possibility of healing, in the idea that even after years of suffering, something good could still emerge. It reminded me that sometimes the answers we seek aren't found in the newest technology or the most expensive treatments, but in the simple, time-tested gifts of nature that have been within reach all along, waiting for us to notice. After that third night, I couldn't help but want to understand what made this oil so effective and why it had succeeded where so many other treatments had failed. I dove into research, driven by a need to make sense of the transformation I was experiencing. What I discovered wasn't a closely guarded secret or a mystical formula, but a blend of natural ingredients that, when combined, worked in harmony to address pain at its roots. The oil contained 4 primary components: eucalyptus, rosemary, arnica, and turmeric. Eucalyptus oil, with its cool, refreshing scent, is renowned for its anti-inflammatory and analgesic properties. Its active compound, cineol, penetrates deep into tissues, easing muscle and joint pain while promoting relaxation. Rosemary, used for centuries in traditional medicine, enhances blood circulation, delivering oxygen and nutrients to strained muscles and accelerating recovery. Its warm, herbaceous aroma also has a calming effect on the nervous system, reducing the stress that often amplifies physical pain. Arnica, derived from a vibrant yellow flower that grows in mountainous regions, is a powerhouse for reducing inflammation and swelling. Long used to treat bruises, sprains, and chronic pain, it offers relief without the harsh side effects of synthetic drugs. Turmeric, the golden spice revered in culinary and medicinal traditions, contains curcumin, a potent anti-inflammatory compound that targets inflamed cells and disrupts the pathways that perpetuate chronic pain. Together, these ingredients don't just mask discomfort like many over-the-counter creams. They work synergistically to relax muscles, reduce inflammation, improve circulation, and promote healing from within. What struck me most was how unremarkable these ingredients seemed on their own, common, even. Yet their combined effect was profound, a testament to the power of intentional, consistent use. Unlike the topical creams I'd tried before, which numbed the pain for an hour only to leave it roaring back, this oil addressed the underlying issues, offering relief that deepened with each application. I want to be clear, this oil wasn't a replacement for medical care, nor should it be. Everybody is unique, and chronic pain demands professional guidance. I didn't abandon my doctor's advice or toss my medications aside. Instead, I integrated this natural remedy into my routine, approaching it with caution and respect. What I learned through this experience is that nature often holds answers we've overlooked, and embracing them with discernment can open doors we didn't know existed. Looking back, it's hard to reconcile the person I am now with the one who lived under the weight of pain for over 2 decades. My days were once defined by discomfort, each movement a calculated risk, each night a battle against my own body. Pain was the lens through which I saw the world, shaping what I could do, how I felt, and even what I dared to hope for. And all of that began to change in just 3 nights, not instantly, but steadily, like a tide turning. I don't claim this oil is a universal cure, nor do I promise it will transform your life as it did mine. But I can say this, it's never too late to explore new possibilities, to take small, deliberate steps toward feeling better. If I had dismissed the suggestion of a friend, if I hadn't been willing to try something new, I might still be waking each morning with a stiff back and a weary heart. So, if you're living with pain, I urge you to keep searching, to stay open to solutions that might lie outside the usual paths. Research, consult your doctor, listen to your body, and approach new remedies with both hope and caution. If you choose to try a natural oil like the one I used, Ensure it's made with high-quality ingredients, free of synthetic additives or dubious claims. Be wary of imitations and overhyped promises. When something works, opportunists are never far behind. Above all, remember this: no remedy, no matter how effective, can work its magic if you've already surrendered to despair. Change begins with the belief that relief is still possible, that your pain doesn't define you, and that your life can still hold moments of ease and joy. It took me over 20 years to find something that helped me, but I found it. And if my story can inspire you to take even one step toward a lighter, freer life, then every moment of my journey, every ache, every tear, every triumph, will have been worth it. The sensation was unlike anything I had anticipated. When I first applied the oil, it didn't assault my skin with the harsh sting or burning heat I'd come to expect from topical remedies. Instead, it felt inviting, almost nurturing, as if it were coaxing my body into a state of ease rather than forcing it. The texture was smooth, gliding effortlessly across my skin, and the faint, earthy aroma carried a subtle promise of relief. As I massaged it into my lower back, I began to notice a gentle warmth blossoming beneath the surface. It wasn't the aggressive, fiery heat of sports creams that left my skin feeling raw and irritated. This was different. Soft, deep, and internal, like the warmth of a sun-warmed stone radiating from within. It felt as though my muscles, perpetually knotted and resistant, were beginning to unfurl, loosening without any conscious effort on my part. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, my back didn't feel like it was fighting me. Instead, it was surrendering, releasing years of pent-up tension. After the massage, I approached my bedtime routine with the usual caution. I lowered myself onto the mattress slowly, bracing for the familiar stab of pain that typically accompanied the act of lying down. That sharp, electric jolt had become a nightly ritual, a cruel reminder of my body's limitations. But this time, as my body settled into the bed, the pain didn't come. I lay there, stunned, waiting for the inevitable. I shifted onto my side, carefully positioning a pillow between my knees as I always did to alleviate the pressure on my spine. Still, nothing. 10 minutes passed, then 20, and the absence of pain felt almost surreal. I closed my eyes, half expecting the discomfort to creep back in, but instead, I drifted into sleep. Not the restless, fragmented sleep I'd grown accustomed to, but a deep, unbroken slumber, the kind I hadn't experienced in years. There was no midnight awakening, no tossing and turning in search of a position that didn't aggravate the ache. I didn't lie awake counting the hours until dawn, my mind racing with the exhaustion of enduring another sleepless night. I simply slept, enveloped in a peace that felt foreign yet profoundly comforting. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. When I opened my eyes the next morning, sunlight was already filtering through the curtains, casting soft patterns across the room. I lay still for a moment, almost afraid to move, as if any motion might shatter the fragile reprieve. I braced myself for the familiar stiffness, the dull ache that always greeted me with my first movement of the day. But as I sat up, there was no resistance, no sharp protest from my body. I swung my legs over the edge of the bed and stood, marveling at the ease of it all. The pain was still there, lingering faintly, but it was different. Muted, distant, less like a screaming alarm, and more like a faint hum in the background. 4 years, that pain had been a constant companion, a relentless force that dictated every movement, every decision. Now, it felt as though someone had turned down the volume on a noise that had been deafening me for far too long. I sat on the edge of the bed in silence, letting the moment sink in. A question flickered in my mind, one I hadn't dared to entertain before. Could this be a coincidence? The thought felt dangerous, almost reckless, after so many years of dashed hopes and failed remedies. But as I stood and walked toward the kitchen, something else struck me. I hadn't clung to the wall for support. I hadn't steadied myself against the furniture as I moved through the house. My steps were steady, unencumbered, as if my body was rediscovering a freedom it had long forgotten. I reached the kitchen and stood there, coffee mug in hand, marveling at the simplicity of the moment. It wasn't just the absence of pain, it was the presence of possibility. The second day began with a sensation I hadn't felt in years: lightness. I woke without the oppressive weight in my lower back, the sensation that I was carrying an invisible burden. There was no need to maneuver myself out of bed with the precision of a tightrope walker, no need to push myself up with my arms as if climbing out of a pit. I simply sat up, effortlessly, and paused on the edge of the bed, half convinced I was dreaming. The pain hadn't vanished entirely, but it had retreated to the periphery of my awareness, no longer the defining force in my body. For the first time in what felt like decades, I moved through the morning without the fog of medication dulling my senses. I was awake, alert, and, dare I say it, hopeful. As the day unfolded, I found myself hyper-aware of every movement, testing my body as if it were a fragile new instrument. I bent down to pick up a stray sock from the floor, expecting the usual twinge that made such simple tasks a calculated risk. But there was no twinge, no need to pause and mentally prepare for the pain. I stretched out on the couch to read, and the familiar sharp pull in my back didn't materialize. Even when I took a deep breath, my chest expanded freely, unhindered by the tightness that had constricted my movements for years. I began to wonder if I was imagining it, if my mind was playing tricks on me, fueled by the desperation to believe in something after so many disappointments. But the evidence was undeniable. This wasn't wishful thinking. It was real, tangible, happening in my body. That afternoon, I reached for the bottle of oil again, my fingers tracing the smooth glass with a mix of curiosity and reverence. I applied a few drops to my hands, warming them as I had the night before, and massaged my back with deliberate, careful movements. The scent enveloped me, grounding and familiar, like the smell of rain-soaked earth after a long drought. This time, I wasn't rubbing the oil on as a last-ditch effort, a desperate attempt to find relief. I was doing it with trust, with gratitude, as if acknowledging a quiet partnership between my body and this remedy. When I went to bed that night, the fear that had always accompanied bedtime was replaced by cautious optimism. I closed my eyes, and as I drifted off, a question lingered in my mind, fragile yet powerful. Is this working? By the third night, the act of applying the oil had transformed into something akin to a ritual. I approached the bottle with a newfound confidence, no longer viewing it with skepticism but with a sense of quiet faith. I poured a few drops into my palm, the liquid catching the light as it pooled, and rubbed my hands together, feeling the warmth spread. As I massaged my back, the motion felt almost sacred, as if I were honoring my body's resilience and its capacity to heal. The warmth spread deeper this time, sinking into muscles that had been clenched for years, coaxing them into a state of rest. That night, I slept not just deeply but profoundly, without a single interruption. There were no abrupt awakenings, no need to shift positions to escape the pain, and no sense that the bed itself was an adversary. I slept as I hadn't since I was young, wrapped in a peace that felt like a gift. When I awoke the next morning, the room was bathed in soft, golden light, the kind that spills through the window at dawn and feels like a promise. I sat up in one fluid motion, waiting for the familiar stab of pain to remind me of my limitations. But it didn't come. I stood, my movements sure and steady, and walked to the kitchen with a stride that felt almost foreign in its ease. There, in the quiet of the morning, I understood something profound. The pain was gone. Not dulled, not managed, but gone. I stepped outside to the garden, the cool morning air brushing against my skin. I watered the plants, bending down to pluck dry leaves from the soil, moving without hesitation or fear. Each action felt like a small miracle, a reclamation of a body I thought had betrayed me long ago. As I knelt in the dirt, my hands brushing against the earth, a wave of emotion washed over me. Tears welled in my eyes, spilling over before I could stop them. I cried, not out of sorrow, but out of an overwhelming sense of gratitude. I cried like a child, raw and unfiltered, because I had rediscovered something I thought I'd lost forever. The simple, unencumbered joy of living in a body that no longer felt like a prison. The pain wasn't confined to my back. It had woven itself into the fabric of my existence, eroding my autonomy, my freedom to move without dread, to breathe without the weight of stiffness, to simply be without the constant, gnawing presence of discomfort. For years, it wasn't just a physical burden. It was a shadow that dimmed every aspect of my life. I could no longer recall what it felt like to wake up refreshed, to walk without hesitation, or to plan a day without calculating how much my body could endure. The pain had become a relentless companion, dictating my choices, narrowing my world, and sapping my spirit. I thought back to the countless times I'd been told to just live with it. The vague diagnoses that offered no clarity. Sciatica one day, arthritis the next, or simply chronic pain as a catch-all label. The prescriptions piled up, each one promising relief but delivering only side effects. Nausea, fatigue, or a foggy mind that made me feel like a stranger in my own body. I remembered the appointments with specialists, the well-meaning advice from friends, the endless cycle of hope and disappointment. There were days when living felt like a war I was losing, one aching step at a time. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was all there was left for me, a life defined by limitation. Then came that small bottle of oil, unassuming and almost overlooked in its simplicity. When I first heard about it from a friend, I was skeptical. After all, I'd tried everything. Painkillers, physical therapy, heating pads, even acupuncture. What could a little vial of natural oil do that modern medicine hadn't? But something in her voice, her quiet confidence, her own story of relief, made me pause. Desperation, perhaps, or a flicker of hope I hadn't entirely extinguished, nudged me to try it. And so, I did. The question that haunts me now, tinged with both relief and slow-burning anger, is this: why hadn't anyone told me about this sooner? I'm not claiming this oil is a miracle cure. I'm not suggesting it will transform every life it touches. But for me, it was nothing short of revolutionary. It didn't just dull the pain, it restored something deeper, something I'd lost sight of: faith. Faith that my body could still heal, that years of suffering didn't have to define my future, and that good things could still find their way to me. That little bottle didn't just soothe my muscles. It rekindled my belief in possibility. The change wasn't instantaneous, but it wasn't gradual either. It unfolded over 3 nights that shifted the trajectory of my life. The first night, I applied the oil to my lower back, the epicenter of my pain. The sensation was subtle at first, a cool, tingling warmth that spread across my skin, followed by a faint loosening of the tightness that had gripped me for years. By the second night, I noticed I could lie down without wincing and could shift positions without bracing for a jolt of pain. By the third night, I woke up feeling something I hadn't felt in decades: lightness. Not just in my body, but in my heart. For the first time in years, I greeted the morning with curiosity instead of resignation. This wasn't about chasing a fleeting moment of relief. I wanted to understand why this worked when so many other treatments had failed. So, I dove into research, driven by a need to unravel the mystery of this unassuming remedy. What I discovered was both humbling and empowering. The oil wasn't some esoteric secret guarded by ancient healers. It was a blend of ingredients that have been known and used for centuries, yet rarely combined with such intention or consistency. Its 4 primary components were eucalyptus, rosemary, arnica, and turmeric, each bringing its time-tested properties to the mix. Eucalyptus oil, with its crisp, invigorating scent, is renowned for its anti-inflammatory and analgesic effects. Its active compound, 1,8-cineol, works to reduce swelling in tissues and soothe pain at its source. It's particularly effective for muscle and joint discomfort, as it penetrates deeply to relax tense fibers and promote blood flow. I learned that eucalyptus has been used in traditional medicine across cultures, from Aboriginal remedies in Australia to modern balms for athletes. Its cooling sensation on my skin wasn't just pleasant. It was a signal that my body was responding, that healing was underway. Rosemary, another cornerstone of the oil, carried a warm, herbaceous aroma that seemed to calm not just my body but my mind. Historically, rosemary has been a staple in Mediterranean healing practices, used to alleviate rheumatic pain and improve circulation. Its ability to enhance blood flow delivers oxygen and nutrients to inflamed tissues, accelerating recovery. Studies suggest rosemary's active compounds, like rosmarinic acid, act as natural anti-inflammatories, while its scent has a subtle calming effect on the nervous system, reducing stress that can amplify pain. As I massaged the oil into my skin, I could almost feel the blood moving more freely, the stiffness giving way. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 3 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. Arnica, derived from a vibrant yellow wildflower native to mountainous regions, is a powerhouse for reducing inflammation and swelling. It's a go-to remedy for bruises, sprains, and chronic pain, often found in ointments for athletes or those recovering from injury. Arnica's active compounds, including helena work by inhibiting inflammatory pathways in the body, offering relief without the gastrointestinal or systemic side effects of many pharmaceutical drugs. For me, arnica's presence in the oil felt like a gentle hand lifting the weight of my pain, allowing my body to rest and repair. Then there was turmeric, the golden spice I'd known from curries and teas, but never considered as a topical remedy. Its active ingredient, curcumin, is one of nature's most potent anti-inflammatory agents, backed by extensive research. Curcumin targets inflamed cells, neutralizing the molecular signals that perpetuate chronic pain. Unlike oral supplements, which can be poorly absorbed, applying turmeric oil directly to the skin delivers its benefits precisely where they're needed. I was struck by how something so familiar, so rooted in everyday life, could hold such profound healing potential. What set this oil apart wasn't just its ingredients, but how they worked in synergy. Unlike over-the-counter creams that numb the surface for a few minutes, this blend addressed pain at a deeper level. It relaxed constricted muscles, reduced inflammation, improved circulation, and supported tissue repair, all naturally, without the synthetic additives or harsh chemicals found in many commercial products. It didn't mask my symptoms. It treated them, offering a kind of relief that felt sustainable, not superficial. But let me be unequivocal. This oil is not a replacement for medical care. It's a tool, one that worked powerfully for me, but one that must be used with caution and respect. Everybody is unique, and every condition is complex. I didn't abandon my doctor's advice or toss my medications aside. Instead, I integrated this oil into my routine under professional guidance, observing how my body responded and adjusting as needed. What I learned through this process is that nature often holds answers we've overlooked, solutions that have been within reach for generations but drowned out by the noise of modern medicine's quick fixes. Looking back, I can hardly reconcile the person I am now with the one who lived under the tyranny of pain for over 2 decades. My days had been choreographed by discomfort, every movement calculated, every activity weighed against its cost. Mornings began with a groan, and evenings ended with surrender. Pain wasn't just a sensation, it was a lens that colored everything, from my relationships to my dreams. It shrank my world and made me smaller than I wanted to be. And yet, in just 3 nights, that world began to expand again. I'm not here to promise a universal cure or to evangelize a single solution. What worked for me may not work for you, and that's okay. What I can say is that it's never too late to explore new possibilities, as long as you do so with discernment and responsibility. Had I dismissed my friend's suggestion, had I let cynicism win, I'd still be waking up with a numb back and an aching soul. Instead, I took a chance, and it led me to a life I thought I'd lost. If you're living with pain, I urge you to stay open, not to blind hope, but to informed curiosity. Research, consult your doctor, and listen to your body. If you try a natural remedy like the one I used, ensure it's high quality. Check the label for pure, organic, if possible, and free of unnecessary fillers or fragrances. Be cautious of imitations or products promising overnight miracles. When something gains traction, opportunists are quick to exploit it. I learned to spot the difference between genuine remedies and slick marketing, and I encourage you to do the same. Above all, remember this: no remedy, no matter how effective, can work its magic if you've already surrendered inside. Change begins with a spark of belief that your pain doesn't have to be your destiny, that your age or history doesn't define your future, and that feeling good is still within reach. It took me over 20 years to find something that worked, but I found it. And if my story can inspire even one person to take that first step toward relief, to reclaim a piece of their life from pain, then every moment of my journey, every ache, every tear, every triumph, will have been worth it. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this journey. I've shared how over 20 years of back pain, countless treatments, and moments of hopelessness led me to a simple, natural solution that gave me back my freedom in just 3 nights. Now, I want to hear from you. What have you learned from my story? What's one thing you've taken away that you'll bring into your own life to practice? Whether it's exploring natural remedies, consulting your doctor, or simply refusing to give up hope. Please share it in the comments below. I can't wait to read your thoughts and connect with you. If you found value in this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more stories and insights to help you live better.